please, a warm round of applause for Philippe, and thank you all for being here.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you all for being here. And I want to start by saying that, this is a very special place to me because I spent basically all my youth living on Boulevard Henri IV, which is very close to here. I went to the Lycée des Francs-Bourgeois. And then after traveling to San Francisco and now living in London, I have the chance to come back here, just a few blocks, where I was born. So I'm very excited today to see that, the ecosystem in Paris is really booming. The fact that you're all here today is living proof of this. And on top of that, it's right where I used to live. So thank you. So today I want to speak to you about fundraising. Before I get there, one question I wanted to ask you is how many people in this room have raised money from angels or VC? Okay, how many have found it easy? No one. Damn, I was. Oh, nice! I was looking for my next investment, which is perfect. So let's talk after the presentation. So jokes aside, I think what I'm trying to do today, what I wanted to do is just give you a few tips to make fundraising easier. Because being an entrepreneur is all about building a company. It's not about raising money. And hopefully this will help you raise money faster so you can go back to do what you love, which is building a great company. All right, so I've before getting into the 10 words, which I try to shape this presentation around 10 words, I would just wanted to leave you with 4 thoughts about Accel Partners. The first one is that we are a global platform. And so we have, we started in Silicon Valley. We've been in Europe for 15 years. We have an office in India. We have invested in category-defining company in all these continents. And every office, the way we work is basically, the office where invest based on the HQ of the company, but whoever invests, you get access to the global platform. And what we want to do, what we're trying to do, is basically be this, this gate to a truly global platform. The second thought I wanted to mention is, so what we're trying to do is we're trying to be the first to partner with entrepreneurs who have the ambition to redefine the world, redefine their category. So we like to get in first, and we like people who have a big vision. And you have some of the people we have, we are very proud to have worked with on this slide. The third point I want to leave you with is that we can invest $1 million to $100 million. So, we're not a late stage firm. We do both early and late stage. We have done seed investment in France in company like Champion, and then we have done $100 million investment in later stage company like Zero in New Zealand. So don't think that you're too early for us. We do early as well. And the last point is, of course, we love SaaS companies, and we have invested in category-defining companies in this segment, including Atlassian, which was mentioned before, Qubit, a lot of French companies. So we have Algolia and Doctolib that you're going to hear about tonight. U.S. company like Dropbox of DocuSign. This is really a categories that we like. We already talked about my background. So I've been investing for about 10 years now. I spent a lot of time in Silicon Valley. I've been back in Europe with Accel for about 5 years. And some of the company I invested in include, Criteo in my previous firm when I was at Bessemer, BlaBlaCar, and of course, Algolia, DocuSign, and Doctolib that you're going to hear about tonight. So getting back to the 10 words. First word, alignment. So what do I mean by alignment? The first thing when you want to raise money is pick a firm. So which firm are you going to speak to? And let me start with just this slide to give you some illustration of that. So if you look at the white part of the pie on both circles, which one is the biggest? So the people who think that the one on the left side is the biggest, raise your hand. All right, we have 1. People who think that on the right side is the biggest, raise your hand. Wow, big majority. Who think that they are of equal size? All right, it's kind of even. Well, the reality is that if Pia has done her job well, they should be of equal size. So why am I showing you this? I'm showing you this because alignment is part, the key around alignment is making sure that you're partnering with a venture firm who are trying to achieve the same thing that you want to achieve. And there are some businesses which don't need a lot of money, where you don't need to dilute yourself. So you're going to be on the left side, where the size of the market can be constrained, but you'll have a very big share of a smaller circle, right? And there are businesses where the ambition is actually to go global and build something big, but that are going to require a lot of money, and you're going to have a smaller share, but in much larger circle. But at the end, the value creation is going to be the same. The journey is going to be different, and it's all about choosing what journey you want to do. And I don't think one is better than the other. And then making sure that you pick a partner with the same vision about this journey. This is, I think, the most important thing about picking a venture firm. Now, if I'm talking about SaaS in particular, the other thing I would like to, which I think is very important in terms of alignment, is understanding the US market. Because you can't be a leading SaaS companies, most of the time, there are exceptions, but it's unless you are in the US market. So when you pick a firm, you want to pick a firm which, a strong tie to the US. Obviously, that's self-serving, but it's also true. Or a firm which, if you look at their track record, you see that in their follow-on round, they have worked with US firms, so they have some connection there. Because for most SaaS companies, you will need to be a leader in the US if you want to be a leader in your category. Of course, there are exceptions like Doctolib, for example, which is an intersection between a consumer and B2B, where it's more about the local country. But for most businesses, SaaS businesses, you will need to be in the US. So, second word, be prepared. So let me tell you a short story about this. So when the first time I looked for a job, so it was a few years back, I wanted to go into consulting. So don't ask me why, but at the time it was cool. Basically, I look at all the firms and I say, well, here are the 15 firms I think are interesting for me. And then I order them by preference. And then I started with the one I didn't want to go to and ended up with the one I wanted to go to. So that by the time I got there, I basically had 45 interviews, which, for consulting is kind of case study, so you need to be a bit trained for them. And then, of course, it went well because, after 45 case studies, you know your stuff. And I would advise you to do the same when you raise money. Start with, do your list of 10, 15 firms and start with the firms that you think are probably, maybe you would want to work with them, but they wouldn't be your first choice. And get your pitch rehearsed. You will see the questions that they are asking you. You will see how they react. You will perfect your pitch. And then when the right, you come to the firm you really want to work with, then you will really be much prepared. And we do apply the same thing on the venture side. So if you go to our website, you will find this quote from Louis Pasteur, which says, chance favors a prepared mind. So what does this mean? It means that on our side, we also do our work. We identify the spaces that we like. We talk to a lot of entrepreneurs in these spaces, and we try to know our stuff, right? So we want to be prepared. You should be prepared as well. All right, next one. Asks for advice. Don't ask for money. So let me tell you another story. I really like stories. So this is a story of how I got to invest in PeopleDoc, which is one of the French-born SaaS companies. Where now they have their HQ in the US, and they recently raised a $30 million round in Q4 last year. So that's some good momentum. When I started the discussion with Jonathan Benamou, who is the founder, that was actually close to 2 years before actually I invested in the company. And the first time I met him, he said, "Hey, look, I have this, this product which is basically addressing. It was digitization of the pay slips in France." And I told him, well, it's an interesting market, but you're only addressing the French market. So it's a nice business, but you're going to be in, you remember the pie, you're going to be the smaller pie, and maybe you have a larger share of it. But that's not really something that, Accel would be interested in, because that's not our goal. We try to go for the larger circle. And I told him, you need to find a product that can actually address companies beyond France. Then he came back to me 6 months later. And he said, well, I've got a new product, right? My product's called now PeopleDoc. It's a document management system. It works for any company that is north of 1,000 employees. I said, well, now we're in business. Right now you have really something big. So I think the next step for you is to go to the US, because if you want to be a leader in your market, you'll need to sell your product in the US. Then he called me back 3 months after and said, hey, I got my visa for the US, moving to New York. I said, great, let's talk. I said, well, I have another news for you, which is not as good. I talked to my board, and he said, we don't want to raise an external round right now, so they gave me $1 million to test the US market. So I said, well, $1 million for the US market, I think we'll talk soon. And guess what? So 2 months later, he called me back and said, well, we have landed our first 3 clients in New York. I think we need to talk. I said, yeah, I think we do. So why do I mention this? I mention this because over 2 years, we built a relationship. We built some trust. And I got to see him, I got to see what he had to say, and I got to see him deliver. And on his side, what he said, well, he knew me, we talked, we discussed strategy. He said, well, he's a guy, this is a guy I want on my board. So that's what I think, this is very important, because if the first time you go and see a VC, you just go and pitch and try the money, if it doesn't work, go to the next one, you're never going to build that relationship and that trust that down the road, I think is going to be probably the best, relationship and best investors in your business. Next one, Backdoor. Wow, any idea why I showed this picture? Well, the other thing I didn't tell you about my background is I like anything on board, which includes surfing, of course. But the reason I mentioned this picture, because this picture made history in the world of surfing, because this guy, Sean Thompson, did something that was very unexpected. So there's this very famous wave in Hawaii. If you know waves, they are A-shaped, and when they break, you can surf it on one side or on the other side. And this wave was very famous in Hawaii because it's a very fast and dangerous wave, and people were only surfing it on the left side, and the right side was thought too difficult. And this guy was the first one to surf it on the right side, and he won the contest that year when he did it. So the reason I'm mentioning this is because, when you're a VC, you see probably 400 or 500 companies every year. And if you want to get the attention of the VC, you want to get through the door, take the back door. Do something that is unexpected. Try to find a recommendation. Don't send a cold email. I mean, everyone say, yeah, I know cold email are stupid, but I can tell you, I receive a lot of them. We all receive a lot of them. So don't send a cold email. Try to find a connection to the investor. Or even best, try to find a connection to one of the companies the investor are invested in. Because I know if John from PeopleDoc or Stan from Doctolib, send me an email and say, you know what, I met this entrepreneur, you should really meet him, I'm going to take the meeting. Right? If the same entrepreneur send me an email cold, I have no reference whatsoever, I may take the meeting if it is really something I'm interested in, a specific area, but if it's outside of my scope, there is very little chance I'm going to take it. Wow. So once you got the VC attention and you have the meeting, you need to wow the VC, sorry. And what does this mean? I mean, let me start with this video of Bill Gates talking about malaria at TED.
For example, there's more money put into baldness drugs than are put into malaria. Now, baldness it's a terrible thing. And rich men are afflicted. And so that's why that priority has been set. But malaria, even the 1 million deaths a year caused by malaria greatly understate its impact. Over 200 million people at any one time are suffering from it. means that you can't get the economies in these areas going because it holds things back so much. Now, malaria is, of course, transmitted by mosquitoes. I brought some here so you could experience this. We'll let those roam around the auditorium a little bit. There. There's no reason only poor people should have the experience. Those mosquitoes are not infected.
All right, so why did I show this? I show this because all the people in this room were at TED remember that event. And by the way, the video on YouTube had millions of views after that, and people remember it. Why? Because there's a lot of emotion going into it. And that's what you need to do when you pitch a VC. You need to find that element in your pitch that people are going to remember, right? And when I'm going to, if you pitch to me when I'm going to cross my partner in the corridor next time, I'm going to say, well, you know what? I met this company. Here is what happened, right? And that's what you need to think about, and that's what you want to create. And it can be something about your product. It can be a demo. It can be a number. I mean, I remember the first time I met with Algolia. I mean, their tagline, was something like, we redefine search, 234 billion API calls. What, 234 API calls? Billion API calls? Well, must be something there, right? And that number stick to me. And that's what you need to find. You need to find the thing that's going to stick in the investor's head. Next one, passion. So VCs don't invest in people because they want to make money, right? They invest in people who want to redefine the world. So you need to show that passion. You need to show that you're not there just because you want, that's a nice way to make a big company and make money. You're doing this because you want to really change something in the world or in the market that you're addressing. And that really needs to come true. So the founding story that you tell at the beginning, I always love to ask people, why are you starting this company, right? Why on hell there's all these things you can do in life and you decide to spend 100%, 110% of your time just doing this? And my question is why are you doing it, right? And you need to find the answer to that question and do it in a way that people will remember and that show your passion and excitement for what you're doing. Story. Well, story are very important because that's also something people remember. You want to make it personal. So try to find in your pitch, try to find the things that, everyone has done crazy things for a startup. I don't know anyone who is young, energetic, put all his energy in something. There's going to be some crazy story. There are going to be some crazy flights missed, nights spent trying to fix a demo for the customer the day after. Try to take some of these stories and put them into your pitch. That shows your passion, that shows your commitment, that makes it personal. And that's also something people will remember. All right, now let's get a bit more sassy. So engine, what do I mean by engine? When I invest in a company, I'm putting a lot of capital to work, and I expect that capital to be the fuel that's going to accelerate the sales and marketing engine. But you don't put a lot of fuel into an engine that's not working, right? So you need to understand how the engine works. And you need to explain to the VC how that engine is working. So let's take two different companies like DocuSign and Algolia that you're going to hear about tonight. Algolia is all about, all about attracting people. People are going to their website to sign up, right? It's a very different model from DocuSign, where DocuSign has a sales force of people who are going to go and pitch a customer and show all the great ROI they can get about their product, right? So you need to really be very crisp and very clear about what is your sales and marketing model for your SaaS company. And you need to be very clear about, well, what do you know about that engine today? What are the metrics? And what makes you believe that if you put more money in the system, it really will accelerate, right? And it can't be just about, well, you know what? I have leads that I get through ATMs, and when I've got these leads, and I have people following up, doing phone calls. But then the question is, well, how do you know that if you put more money on SEM, you're going to get more leads, right? Or maybe you're going to get more leads, but they're going to be 3 times more expensive. It's not going to make sense, right? So you need to have the answer to all these questions. And just saying, well, it works with one person, so it's going to work with 100, is not always a good answer. Numbers. So the good thing about SaaS is that it's a recurring business. And the good thing about recurring businesses is that there's a lot of things you can measure about them. So I used to call them the 5 C's of SaaS. Now I've added 3 more, just to make it a bit new. The 5 on the left side, I guess, are the most important. So CMR, which is your contracted monthly recurring revenue. So it's how much business you generate every month. And the C here means contracted, because you may sign a customer, but it's going to take 3 months to implement it. That's why you put the C, right? If you don't take the C and just say monthly recurring revenue, is that only the things that you have implemented. And basically by comparing both, you know how much you have signed versus how much is actually implemented. But in most of the case, whatever is signed gets implemented, so that's why the CMR is the most important one. Number 2 is CAC, which is customer acquisition cost. How much do you spend to acquire a customer? Number 3 is churn. When you acquire a customer, how long do you keep that customer? 4 is CLTV. So it's basically the equation. You pay customer, they give you revenue for a certain time. When you compare the equation, how good is it, right? I mean, typically you want it to be, if you're more on a consumer side, it's probably going to be 3 to 4. If you're on the enterprise side, where the churn is very low, hopefully you can go beyond that. The 5th point is about cash, of course. I mean, no cash means bankruptcy. You don't want to go there, so make sure you monitor your cash, especially now. I mean, everyone has seen that what is happening in the markets. So you better want to scrub your plan for 2016 and make sure that you get a good use of your cash. And the last 3 is, the first one is cohorts. I think I always find it quite helpful, even if you have looked at your customer acquisition costs versus your lifetime value, just look at the cohorts of customer. How much have you spent in a given month or quarter to acquire all the customer in the quarter, and how is that revenue evolving? I think the reason why I've added that is because when I started investing in SaaS companies in 2006, all of them were more enterprise model, where actually when you get a customer, you keep it for a long time, and the upsells are slow over time. But now we're in a world where actually you put a service online, and then people can sign up, and some people are just trying it, and then will churn quickly, and other people, like, they go from 1 to 20x in 18 months, right? So how do you look at that on an aggregate basis? I mean, the best way is to look at the cohort. And if you see that even though the churn may seem high because a lot of people are just trying and dropping, actually the one you keep way more than compensate for it. And you have cohorts that are growing over time. Number 3 is concentration. I mean, it's especially for the big enterprise model. I mean, you can land a big customer that's going to pay you, 2 million euro a year. But actually, it's not enough to know that. I mean, it's better to have 20 customers paying you 1/20th of that. It shows more regularity than having a big customer that basically takes a large part of revenue. So just something to keep an eye of. And the last one, which I added specific for European companies, is country. As I say, having some revenue in the US quickly is very critical. So that's definitely something you want to show to your investor. And now the good thing about the world, everything is in the cloud, people can sign up from everywhere, is you see companies that can maybe based in Paris or London or Helsinki, and a lot of their revenue is already coming from the US, which was the case for Algolia, for example. Last one, listen. Well, it's not only about you telling your story, it's about also listening to what the VC has to tell you, right? I mean, I see a lot of entrepreneurs when I start the meeting and say, well, do you want to learn a bit more about Accel? And the answer is, well, I looked at your website, so let's go to my business. I'm like, yeah, wow. What if I tell you, you know what? I've been to your website. I know everything about your business. That wouldn't seem right? So try to listen to what the VC has to say, because it's also, this is not only about you pitching the VC to get money, it's about you trying to understand if this is the right VC for you, right? And the more you do that, and I don't, not asking you to challenge the VC and say, well, prove that, worst talking to me, but just asking the question, being curious, is going to show that actually you're thoughtful about that process and that you're actually interested in learning more about the person and the firm that you're pitching. Last tip. Spend a week in San Francisco. All right, so why do I say that? I say that because every firm who is based in Europe, especially in the SaaS business, is going to be afraid that they're going to compete against a US firm, right, based in San Francisco. So just saying a VC, well, you know what, I'd love to see you next week, but I can't because I'm in San Francisco. Everyone's going to assume that you're going to see VC in San Francisco. They'll say, damn, I don't want them. I don't want to be in competition with firm from there. So why don't we speak tomorrow and try to get to something, right? So they don't know if you're just going to go on the beach and go surfing in San Francisco. They're just going to assume that you're going to meet some of their competitors there. So I think that's $1,000 well spent. Well, I'm preaching a bit against my choir here, but if you do that, then I'll tell my colleague in San Francisco. All right, trying to conclude this speech before going away to the panel. So everything, all the 10 words I mentioned are all about building trust with the VC. I mean, and, trust goes both ways. And so if you look at the 10 words I mentioned, it's all about, the reliability, your credibility, your intimacy with the VC, and all that is divided by your self-orientation, right? When I mention people don't want to invest in people who want to make money, they want to invest in people who want to change the world, that's what self-orientation means. If people think that you don't really care about your business and that you're just trying to build something to make money, that's not going to play well in the trust. But if people really understand that you want to really do something that impacts people, that's when I think you're going to earn their trust. All right. Well, thank you. And now I'll leave the place to my partner, Fred, for the panel.